Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from a Frontier. Let me remind you, first of all, tomorrow, Saturday, we're hosting a Mind Speak. The guest is Saad Investments, Edwin Dande. That will be Saturday the 11th at the Intercontinental. We serve breakfast from 9:30. We start at 10. Edwin is a very interesting man, and I must say I got better insight this week when I went round to see him with the camera, and that interview is on the website if you're interested in having a look. Very charismatic individual and has built a solid business in a very short space of time, and I think anyone who's interested in this space should be there. So hopefully we'll see you from 9:30 at the Intercontinental. Come and introduce yourself, and we look forward to hosting Saad. I attended a B Team event sponsored by Safaricom here in Nairobi, and many things, interesting things were said, interesting team of people. Jeremy Awori was there amongst many others, and I like this quotation: we need to stop predicting the future and start shaping it. Macro thoughts: world food import costs increased to the highest level since 2014's record. This is not a good thing, and you will remember there were a lot of theories about the correlation of high food prices in the Arab Spring, and we need to keep an eye on that. Exactly 2 years ago, the total market cap of cryptocurrencies was $6 billion. Today it is $206 billion, a 3,300% increase. And then I like this gorgeous map, shows economic status of world population. That's from Simon, whom I follow on Twitter. Check for stark differences between neighbors. The stronger the wealth gap between nations, the more likely borders are likely to be strictly controlled and regulated. Home thoughts, let me start with Arundhati Roy. The only dream worth having is to dream that you will live while you are alive and die only when you are dead. To love, to be loved, to never forget your own insignificance, to never get used to the unspeakable violence and vulgar disparity of the life around you, to seek joy in the saddest places, to respect strength, never power, above all to watch, to try and understand, to never look away, and never, never to forget. Arundhati Roy. And another quote: and the air was full of thoughts and things to say, but at times like these, only the small things are ever said. Big things lurk unsaid inside. I like this photo by Moses Albanda, who tells me, well, via Twitter, that he's a photographer, and made me think of the seaside, as did this, another day in paradise, discover Lamu. We haven't been there for quite a while. I'm looking forward to getting back. Never get tired of Mara sunsets. That's from E.K. Madsen. And finally, I like this: penthouse interiors at Tadao Ando's NYC residential building. Look rather good. Asia Times is leading with a story that the Saudi prince is poised to take over as king. Tasha Yosef replied to Reuters: seems like war is imminent. This is Lebanon. Saudi Arabia warned its citizens against traveling to Lebanon and asked those in the country to leave as soon as possible, as did the U.A.E., as did Kuwait. The only one missing was actually Bahrain. Robert Fisk is saying Saad Hariri's resignation as Prime Minister of Lebanon is not all it seems. When Saad Hariri's jet touched down at Riyadh on the evening of November the 3rd, the first thing he saw was a group of Saudi policemen surrounding the plane. When they came aboard, they confiscated his mobile phone and those of his bodyguards. Thus was Lebanon's Prime Minister silenced. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Night of the Long Knives did indeed begin at night, only hours after Hariri's arrival in Riyadh. So what on earth is the Crown Prince up to? Put bluntly, he's clawing down all his rivals, so the Lebanese fear, trying to destroy the government in Beirut, force the Shia Hezbollah out of the cabinet, and restart a civil war in Lebanon. It won't work, for the Lebanese, while not as rich, are a lot smarter than the Saudis. Every political group in the country, including Hezbollah, are demanding one thing only: Hariri must come back. As for Saudi Arabia, those who said that the Arab Revolution will one day reach Riyadh, not with a minority Shia rising, but with a war inside the Sunni Wahhabi royal family, are watching the events of the past week with both shock and awe. I said in a response to a tweet, taking on Iran will be the straw that breaks the camel's back. And I said the kingdom has entered a Richard Kapuscinski wormhole. My money is in fact on the other guys. Take a listen to a short video. You can hear President Saad in it. You can hear Sayed Nasrallah in it. It's a short video I came across in 2015. Peter Frankopan, whose wonderful book I read, says sounds like someone in Riyadh could do with a history lesson quick. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman is seen in this photograph at a palace in Riyadh in 2016. The photographer is Luca Locatelli. The Saudi purge isn't just a power grab, says Business Week. It makes sense to be cynical about Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's ostensible crackdown on corruption in Saudi Arabia. Among the 11 princes, 4 ministers and dozens of well-known businessmen arrested were some of the 32-year-old's last potential rivals to the Saudi throne. The move also smacks of an asset snatch. Police nabbed 3 of the Arab world's 10 richest men, including investor Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, the billionaire best known for rescuing Citicorp in 1991 and making big bets on Apple Inc. and 21st Century Fox Inc. But was it only a Machiavellian power play, or is this the start of a dramatic go-for-broke attempt to transform a country that's resisted change for decades? Mohammed seems to be playing the equally ruthless roles of autocrat and reformer. The millennium has been outspoken about his bold plans to modernize Saudi society and wean the kingdom from fossil fuel. Prince Mohammed has smashed that conservative status quo in an act, no doubt, he believes, of creative destruction. This is a man of dead certain belief in himself, who told this magazine in a long autobiographical interview in April 2016 that his childhood experiences among princes and potentates were more valuable and formative than Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, and Bill Gates. The prince is racing the clock. When he and his father came to power in 2015, oil prices had recently plummeted, leaving the country in imminent danger of a budget meltdown. They slashed spending, reduced subsidies for energy and water, grounding the economy to a halt, with little prospect that oil prices will rise much higher. Not so sure. We got geopolitical premium going back into the price. The country is only about 4 more years at its current rate of deficit spending until its currency reserves are depleted. 4 years is not a long time. Time is running out. Take you back to May 2017 when I quoted the Crown Prince, who then said, "How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Montazar?" And I still think that they're taking on way too much, and there's a risk of an implosion. The OPEC go-go days of Sheikh Yamani's prayer beads and Delphic pronouncements belong to yesteryear. Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo, the current OPEC Secretary General, is a poor imitation of Yamani and is playing with a set of cards that is stacked against him. Reserves have been depleted from Abuja to Riyadh, from Luanda to Caracas, and in all the oil-producing capitals in the world. So many capitals Europeans are fiddling while sitting on a tinderbox and playing with matches. That's the best description I can give you of what I think this guy's doing. The Deputy Crown Prince, now Crown Prince, was quoted on Al Arabiya about Iran. How can I communicate with them while they prepare for the arrival of Al-Mahdi al-Muntazar? And I said, this is deluded thinking at a time when things could seriously fall apart. Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart, the centre cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world, the blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The U.A.E, Donald Trump, Jared Kushner, and Bibi Netanyahu will push MBS into a war abroad and at home at the same time, says Tom Friedman in the New York Times. And the whole region could spin out of control at the same time. I couldn't agree more. In an article in Bloomberg talking about Hezbollah, an Israeli gentleman on the border says, this time they tell us it's going to be like rain. Now, very interesting report in The Intercept. Qatar debt project would be grandiose in its ambitions, control the yield curve, decide the future. The economic warfare involved an attack on Qatar's currency using bond and derivatives manipulation. The plan laid out in a slide deck provided to The Intercept through the group Global Leaks was aimed at tanking Qatar's economy, according to documents drawn up by a bank outlining the strategy. The outline prepared by Bank Avignon, a private Luxembourg-based bank owned by the family of controversial British financier David Rowland, laid out a scheme to drive down the value of Qatar's bonds, increase the cost of insuring them, with the ultimate goal of creating a currency crisis that would drain the country's cash reserves. The Qatar debt project would be grandiose in its ambition. Targeting a nation's economy using financial manipulation would be a dramatic break from traditional norms of diplomacy and even warfare. The cost of insuring Qatari debt has risen some 70% since May. The stock market is down 24% this year. Yields are rising ahead of a bond offering to be made by the end of the year. In other words, the U.A.E plans to short Qatar, then drive it into the ground by manipulating international financial markets, all the while gaining diplomatic leverage against its rival. Well worth a read, that article. In fact, I was suggesting, in a rather cynical suggestion, that Qatar shorted the oil markets in order to put pressure back. Jerry Maguire, show me the money, which is what this article seems to be doing. And I wrote about Qatar severally, but in June this year I said, rolling over Qatar, the House of Saad's protector has always been the US. But this time an American president has excelled himself at extracting a mind-bogglingly egregious price. I have to surmise that the Emir of Qatar balked at the price and that his adversaries are saying, okay, we can always do it by force, because this now looks like a mugging in a dark alley. I wasn't wrong. The FT's got an article, The House of Trump and the House of Saud. You might say it is a match made in heaven. With their taste in gold elevators, the Trump family and the House of Saud were destined to alight at the same penthouse. But the affinity between Donald Trump, the US president, and Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia's de facto monarch, goes beyond a shared aesthetic for dictator chic. It is chiefly transactional. The US-Saudi relationship is the quintessence of Trumpian diplomacy. Its flowering symbolizes the decay in the US-led global order. Mr. Trump's approach to foreign relations is a blend of family and money and a weakness for flattery. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe pledged $50 million to the Ivanka Trump-inspired Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, the World Bank's effort to seduce America's first family. Mr. Abe, whose first gift to Mr. Trump was a gold-plated golf club, hosted Ms. Trump in Tokyo shortly before her father turned up. 6 months ago, Saudi Arabia and the U.A.E became the first donors to Mr. Trump's scheme with a $100 million grant. Now it is China's turn to host Trump. Its President Xi Jinping approved a flurry of Ivanka Trump trademark shortly before he first met her father in Mar-a-Lago earlier this year. This is the important point. It showed a president who cannot tell the difference between the national interest and his family business. It was the kind of self-dealing you would expect from a Saudi royal. China's spy agency studied Trump's every move prior to the state visit. I think they did a damn fine job, lashings of flattery, and even had Trump blaming Obama for the Chinese trade surplus. China Rising was an article I wrote a couple of months ago. Take a look. Priti Patel visited a hospital that treats jihadists. This is in Israel's interests, but not the United Kingdom's. Profoundly disconnected, socially awkward, and reeking of late-stage virginity, he gives off the creepy vibe of a man with a too extensive knowledge of human taxidermy and a soundproofed van. Oh, that was good. Alibaba prepares a grand retail experiment for Singles Day. Currency markets, let's take a look. Euro dollar 116.39. Dollar index 94.48. Japanese yen 113.53. That's strengthened quite a bit of late. Swiss franc 0.9951. The pound is at 131.41. The Australian dollar 0.7674. India rupee 65.155. South Korean won 11.2027. The Riyal 325.90. Egyptian pound 17.6565. And the South African rand softened yesterday on the story that President Zuma was about to announce free primary education. That's at 14.2681. Dollar index, let me put up a 3-month chart. We've been backing and filling up in the last couple of sessions, but I expect continued progress higher. Euro dollar, that's rebounded, recaptured the 116 level and just shy of 116.40. 116.65 is a key area. We break that, we're above 117. You earn less on Eurozone junk bonds than in US Treasuries. Take a look at this comparison. Bitcoin spiked towards $8,000 is fading. We're now at $7,000, 173. Bitcoin's monthly returns over the last 5 years, November's been pretty sick at 99%, says David Inglis. Oil prices stabilizing, but heading for the 5th weekly advance as political turmoil in Saudi Arabia roils energy markets. Brent crude last trading when I looked at 63-66 area. I think there's still more to go because the situation in the kingdom is now simply unprecedented. Gold, this is a chart from T Commodity, last trading at 1284, and we've seen it firm up in the last few sessions. Frontier markets sorting through trash, Kabul. This is a photograph from Yam Photo. Sub-Saharan Africa, I will return to Zimbabwe to lead you, Mnangagwa said in a statement. Mugabe has faced challenges from outside before, but never an internal challenge. This time it is the machinery that kept him in power that is now shuddering, said Pierre's Pigou. She is a psychotic case. Now she is obliged, a senile and doting husband, to leave power to her. The whole nation is outraged. Pigou said Mugabe's brinkmanship may have backfired, but he still has a lot of cards up his sleeve. Fears of the return of hyperinflation have led to panic buying and rocketing prices in Zimbabwe, while confidence in the parallel bond note currency launched by the government nearly a year ago has collapsed. My view is that the promotion of Grace Mugabe will not last a moment longer than her husband's life. Gado put this cartoon up, The Long Knives of Hariri. As I said in July last year, countries like Zimbabwe feel like they are right at the edge that was described thus by Hunter S. Thompson, the edge. There is no honest way to explain it, because the only people who really know where it is are the ones who have gone over. President Magufuli hailed President Museveni. I've been out of Tanzania 4 times, but the 2 times I've been out, it has been to visit Uganda. This shows how important the relationship between between Tanzania and Uganda is to me. How Britain did Gaddafi's dirty work is an article in The Guardian. If you've got a moment, take a read of my article from 2011, Gaddafi's Body in a Freezer. What's the message? S.K. Coman tweeted, Cotonou, Benin. Let's have a look at the photograph. Interesting piece in Business Week, the brothers who bought South Africa. The axe has fallen. The beginning of the end of Nene's political career came on a warm Monday morning. He was catching up on email in his office in Pretoria's neoclassical old Reserve Bank building, where he was serving as South Africa's Minister of Finance when his deputy Jonas asked for an urgent meeting. Jonas had been desperate to speak to his boss for days, but what he wanted to tell Nene was far too sensitive to discuss by phone. Nene has heavily lidded eyes, the build of a retired rugby player, and a preternatural calm. He suggested to Jonas that they step onto an adjoining balcony, the better to avoid any listening devices. There, Jonas began his tale. The previous Friday, Jonas said he'd been summoned to a four-mansion compound in Johannesburg owned by the Gupta family, a clan of Indian-born businessmen known to wield substantial influence over South African politics. A.J. Gupta, the eldest of three brothers atop the family, was direct. Nene was becoming a problem. He explained that Jonas would soon replace Nene as finance minister, and in that capacity would remove some senior officials who were also standing in the family's way. Gupta spoke in the future tense, presenting Jonas's appointment as a fait accompli. Jonas was staggered. The Guptas have no government role, and ministers serve solely at the discretion of the president, Jacob Zuma. Jonas said as much and made his way toward the door. As he did, Jonas would later tell investigators Gupta said his family could put 600 million rand, or about $43 million, into an account of Jonas's choice. And if Jonas happened to have a bag with him, he could have 600,000 rand in cash right away. The Gupta family denies the meeting occurred. Nonsense, he told Jonas. Those guys can't remove me. The best response, Nene said, was to focus on their work. They had a budget to prepare and Africa's most sophisticated economy to run. Just over 6 weeks later, on December the 9th, 2015, Nene was leaving a cabinet meeting when he received a call from one of Zuma's advisors asking him to report at the president's office. Nene turned around to return to the Union buildings, the sprawling hillside complex that houses the presidential administration. Zuma was waiting for him. Speaking in a mix of English and his native Zulu, the president stood as he told Nene he was finished at the finance ministry, effective immediately, and should start preparing for a post at a government-backed bank. Nene, returning to his car, texted Jonas, "The axe has fallen." And it's a fantastic story giving the whole history of the Guptas, how they got involved, how they pivoted away from Becky to Zuma, and it really is very interesting. If it were up to me and I made the rules, President Zuma told reporters at a rally outside Johannesburg last year, speaking in Zulu, I would ask for 6 months as a dictator, remove the constraints of the democratic system and continued, and you'd see wonders. South African oil share, just shy of a record high, up 18.18% year to date. Dollar rand, last time I checked, 14.2681. Nigerian oil share up 37.87% year to date. Ghana Stock Exchange up 41.46% year to date. In 2000, life expectancy at birth was just 48 years in Rwanda. Today it's 67. Let's move on to Kenya. A supporter of Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta salutes from the crowd in Nairobi. Mainstream Kenyans feel so deeply cheated they are openly toying with the idea of succession, Odinga told an audience in Washington. The biggest problem in Kenya right now is exclusion. Unless they are addressed, they will tear the country apart. As things stand now, anger and radicalization is growing by the day, he said. On the 6th of November, I wrote a piece about Safaricom. One of those comments I made was the ubiquitous M-Pesa platform grew first half revenue 16.2%. By one estimate, M-Pesa mobile money system alone lifted about 2% of Kenyan households out of poverty between 2008 and and 2014. Return of fired CFO presents new headache for Kenya Airways. If KQ doesn't want the CFO, there's no court in the land that can force him to stay there. Kenya Airways' share price data is on rich wrap-ups. Carbacid reported full year 2017 profit before tax fell 16.63%. Full year turnover slunk 29.141%. Profit before tax down 16.63%. Profit for the year after tax down 6.195%. EPS down 6.122%. Dividend per share maintained unchanged. Challenging year, they said, with increased competition and market challenges. That was a big turnover downshift, I've got to admit. Co-op Bank reported Q3 numbers. Loan book increased by 14.2%. Profit before tax declined 9.8%. Co-op Bank trades on a trailing PE ratio of 8.2 and a price-to-book ratio of 1.4. However, somebody on Twitter was alerting me to the fact that they've increased their non-performing loans quite substantially. I'll take a look at that, maybe talk about it on Monday. Finally, Nairobi All Shares up 21.31% year-to-date. The NSE 20 is up 18.07% year-to-date. I wish you a tremendous weekend, and I hope to see you at Mindspeak at the Intercontinental tomorrow from 9:30.